Hello, Iowa. Scott Casper here. Our show, Talk Therapy, investigates a topic that many Iowans face every day, mental. The show offers the expertise of doctors, therapists, specialists, and those who care, those who understand the challenges Iowans are facing. I invite you to join me and our very special guest today, Brittany Blong, and you, each and every Saturday morning from 10 to 11 on Iowa's Hope 940 and online at talktherapytmhs.com. Join in for the conversation on this important life. As we like to say, Iowa, we're listening. Hello again, everybody. It is Scott Casper. Nick Learhoff has the day off. Brittany Blong is joining us from St. Gregory's. And again, this is St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show. Every week, a different topic within the sphere of mental health. Joining us, the guests that can help you understand what you may be facing and further where you can turn. And who knows, you may hear something or someone that has a mental health issue just like you. Our goal is to make mental health a part of the everyday conversation, not something that we whisper about behind closed doors, not something that is hidden away from everybody. Because let me tell you something. If you think everybody in America is better than you or doesn't face, mental health issues, you're wrong. In varying degrees, everybody faces mental health issues in every walk of life. And I think that's what I would like this program to do, is raise that commonality to have you understand that you're not alone, okay? If you're not alone, we're better able to help each other, okay? And I believe that we're not alone, and I believe that we can help each other. And it's this program, I hope, will provide an answer for you. Now, we're not going to cover every topic on every show. We're going to select one topic per program that will allow us to have that conversation, okay? It could plug into somebody you know that lives down the street or in another county or a different part of the state. And it could be a completely different topic. It could be alcoholism or addiction or suicide or the ravages of COVID. And COVID is a very, very real issue for everyday Americans and everyday Iowans, those that are stuck away in nursing homes, okay, that are on these 14-day lockdowns because somebody had a high temperature. I think it's important to know that everybody is facing a mental health stress right now that is hard for us to even fathom the degree to which we're being affected. But it's amazing. One of the things that we look at is child abuse. We're going to be talking with Greg Bellville today. He's Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Iowa. He's our special guest, but let's meet Brittany Blong first. She's the business development representative for St. Gregory's. Good morning, Brittany. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well.
You made it through the rain. It is raining here in central Iowa right now, and it's consistent. This is the kind of good soaking rain we've needed, yeah?
Oh, yeah, for quite some time.
I like that because what it is a replenishment of the earth's soul, as it were, because that's where that rain needs to get to, the soul. It needs to replenish the aquifer. Either way, it's needing to be replenished. Danny Bishop, our guest, our producer. Danny, good morning. How are you?
Well, good morning, everybody.
Now, it's obvious Brittany is brightening up the room where Nick would just be sucking the life out of the studio.
She's doing a fine job, yeah.
No, Nick is not feeling well, so Brittany, you've agreed to come in. Tell us about you. Tell us how long you've been with St. Gregory's and what it is you do for St. Gregory's.
I have been with St. Gregory's since...
I'm going to pop this up here. Here we go.
Okay, perfect. Is that better?
You bet it is.
All right. I've been with St. Gregory's since April of 2018.
Wow.
So when I began there, they were still privately owned, and then maybe 6 months after that, we transitioned into new ownership, and that's when this position became available. So prior to this, I was in admissions, and then I was able to move into this business development position, which suits me, I think, a little bit better.
Where do you come from?
Sheraton, Iowa.
Sheraton, Iowa,
Yep,
the home of Hy-Vee, I think, right?
That's what we say, although Hy-Vee began in Beaconsdale, Iowa.
Is that right? Beaconsville,
Yep.
Iowa. Okay. That was a little corner shop, I believe. I remember seeing all the pictures out at the Hy-Vee convention center out there.
We do have most of the warehouses, though, and all the truck drivers. So it employs most of our town.
Well, that's important, and they've developed enough property there where I'm confident they won't be leaving anytime soon.
I don't
want to start
either.
a rumor here and go, oh my gosh, Hy-Vee is vacating Sheraton, Iowa. No, not at all. Matter of fact, they're a great employer. Several of my friends have gone to work there as well. We're talking about your background. We're talking a little bit about what you do. What leads you to St. Gregory's?
I was a patient
Okay.
at St. Gregory's in 2014. I struggled with addiction off and on from the time I was about 17 for about a decade. And St. Gregory's was the last program that I went to. It had a combination of all of the different places that I went, but all the best parts of it. And then it added the spiritual aspect, which was the part of it that was missing for me. I grew up in faith, but never took it on as my own.
Right.
Just the information that I saw was different. And so when I was going through the program, at one point I signed a big staff poster in the hallway. I said, I'm going to work here someday. You just see.
Well, it was like me when I was there. I told Jimmy, what's his title now? Just Jimmy? Just Jimmy James?
Yeah, admissions
guy.
He's the admissions guy. He was my admissions guy.
He's an amazing guy, is who he is.
He is.
Get James Garcia is who we're talking about. I would suggest that it was my last as well, and it was needed. It was something I embraced wholeheartedly. I couldn't wait to get there.
Me too.
I wanted that emotional connect with myself again that I had long since tossed away. I didn't realize it was, actually like in my hip pocket. I just need to reach in the right pocket, bring it back out, show it to the world, and just be real again. And I haven't been this happy, and I can't even tell you how long, as far as my outlook on life. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah.
I don't know that necessarily a drug of choice really is an important part of the conversation, but for me, it was alcohol, and it had just clouded everything I did, and everything. It tended to destroy everything that was around me, and nobody wanted that. Wanted to see me in that downward spiral. The people at St. Gregory's opened that front door and said, "Hey," and I walked through the lunchroom. Remember my first time walking through the lunchroom. There's everybody eating, and they look up, and go, here's the new guy. But I remember walking into Jimmy's office on day 2. I said, this experience, I've got to share it. And as I spent my time there, I said I wanted to build a radio program that would allow me to speak on not only this topic, but everything around dealing with it. Because let's face it, alcoholism is not something that happens. It's a disease. Okay. Once we embrace that idea that it's an illness that you have to work with, you can't get rid of it. Alcoholism is going to be with me the rest of my life. I can't go, I'm better now. All right. How many times you heard that? I'm all better. I'm better. I can probably just have a drink. I can have a cocktail with dinner or a glass of wine or whatever. The thought of going back there is, to me, a very, it's a distant thought, thankfully. But there's, for me, and I understand my situation may be different than everybody else's. I bet there are some out there that could share some of my commonalities, but the thought of going back is just very disturbing to me. And it's disturbing so much that it only reinforces that which I learned. I was given the tools. How about you? Were you given tools that were allowing you to reacquaint yourself with real life?
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the most empowering things about it was, after being there only a short period of time and starting to feel better sooner than I thought was possible. I had some gal when I went in, it was set up a little bit differently, but if I was by myself, I ended up being by myself for a little while. And so a gal came in, she got there from Kansas City, and I was like, oh, hey, blah, 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 because I hadn't talked to anybody. And she just looked up at me. She's like, do you work here or something? I was like, no. She's like, why are you so happy? I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
But when you feel that, when that weight's lifted, when you realize that there's hope again, you can't help but want to share it with other people. Hey, you don't have to be miserable like this anymore.
Right.
there's a way out, and you want to share that.
Well, I'm awfully glad you took the opportunity to join us, and I frankly would vote for having her in the studio every show, and just tell Nick, stay home, be sick all you want, pal. Not around your kids, Nick. Okay, and I know he's going to be listening to this very program.
Is this going to turn into a competition now? You're going to hold contests and prizes. You get to be on the radio.
A little bit. All right, our topic this week, Brittany, is child abuse. How to recognize abused children, what to do, what services are available, some of the causes, the effects, while they, for some, may not be obvious because it could be mental abuse for a child. Our professional this week is Greg Bellville. He's Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Iowa. He'll be joining us here in just a few moments. Matter of fact, on the other side of the break. Danny, we're about, 2 out of the break?
A couple of minutes left.
All right. So Iowa's future really depends on the safety and well-being of its kids, the children in our community, and that's statewide and those states that touch Iowa. Together, community members and organizations can help ensure safe and nurturing childhoods for youth, leading to a more prosperous society tomorrow. I'm going to insert something right there, okay? One of the problems that is facing, that children in Iowa are facing right now is the lack of that human accord, and that's being in touch with others their own age. There's something to be said about being, homeschooled, if you will, even through the school system. But I do believe that kids only blossom when they're around those that they can play with, that can understand them, that can communicate with them. And there's good and bad, but at the same time, I think for the most part, that human interaction between kids is so very important. Do we need to return to the classroom safely? You bet. Are there safeguards that need to be in place for both the students and the teachers and administrators? You bet. But you know what? That kind of comes with the job, in my estimation. It comes with the job, and here's why. There have been childhood illnesses throughout, recorded time that teachers have faced bravely and have done their job to remain unaffected, but sometimes people do get sick. I'm not saying let's put, a little bit of shine on COVID, not at all. I believe that we have to be responsible to each other, and part of that responsibility lies in how we educate our kids, okay? Now, those kids now are at home, and their parents are enjoying their company to a degree, but there's a certain amount of frustration once those parents let go of those kids. That they say there's that fall breath of relief when kids go back to school. Well, these parents have not had that for a while, okay? And for the most part, that's something they wrap their arms around, that time. And so, parents may lash out at these kids a little more severely than they normally would. And again, we're going to be talking with Greg about that. So COVID will be a part of the conversation. And child abuse comes in a variety of ways. Could be physical, could be mental, could be emotional, could be withholding emotions. And that is so important. You can't not love your kids. You got to love your kids. And there's so many different ways to do it. Right, Brittany?
Right.
All right. You ready for break? Your first one.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Dang. Okay. Sorry, Nick. You may be on the way out, my friend. Hey, folks, do me a favor. Grab a cup of coffee, a hot cup of tea, or whatever it is you're enjoying this morning, and join us for the rest of the program. You're listening to St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show. Look for us online at talktherapy.tmhs.com. Again, there's talktherapy.tmhs.com. Let us know what topic you'd like to have us cover in future episodes, and we'll do our best to bring that up and find the experts that can help you have that conversation. Okay, we'll do it for you. You bet we will. 10 to 11 every Saturday on Iowa's Hope, 940. Stay tuned. There's more after this short time out.
Stay tuned. There's more with Nick Learhoff and Scott Casper right here on Iowa's 940 for St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show. Iowa, we're listening.
A came to St. Gregory very reluctantly at my all-time worst, physically, emotionally, and mentally. But I gave my best effort to these new things in my life as I saw hope in this complete approach. I'm at the point now that I feel my strongest and best ever, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I felt quite certain God was orchestrating everything.
St. Gregory Recovery Center. Recovery starts here. relevantradio.com/St. Gregory.
All right, welcome back to the Five Talents Financial Management Studio. Scott Casper here. Brittany Blong sitting in for Nick Learhoff this week on St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show. This week, our topic, child abuse, how to recognize abused children, what to do, and what services are available. And by the way, that child abuse goes two ways. It's the kids who are being abused and the parents who are suffering the guilt for doing for being those that are, and you may not even know that you're abusing your kids, but hopefully we'll give you some signs to look for and some things to think about on this program. Our guest, Greg Bellville, the Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Iowa, so he is from there, by the way. PCA is the acronym. He joins us now. Greg, thanks for holding. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, Scott. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Good. Say good morning to Brittany.
Hi, Brittany. How's it going?
Hello, good morning.
Now, do you guys know each other at all?
I have heard of him so often, but I don't think we've only met in passing.
Brittany, when she walked in the studio, the first thing I thought of was the theme song to the hit television show, The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Who can turn the world on with her smile? Remember that? No? Okay. Have I just aged myself completely out of the building? I think I may have. All right. Greg, thanks for joining us. Child abuse, the topic today, how to recognize abused children, what to do, what services are available. Tell us a little bit about you and Prevent Child Abuse Iowa.
I am the Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Iowa. A little bit about me, born and raised here in Des Moines. My entire professional career has been in behavioral health, mental health, primarily substance use disorder treatment. I myself once worked at St. Gregory's Retreat Center.
I'm seeing a pattern to grow here. It's amazing.
Yeah. And the longer I worked there and as I started my own family and the more I learned about substance use disorder treatment and the more impact I saw on the families, the more I wanted to get involved in this work, and I started seeing the impact it was having on children and the impact that those childhoods were having on the adults that I was working with in treatment. So it really drew me to this work. So I ended up at Prevent Child Abuse Iowa as the Executive Director. It's been a blessing. I love it. Prevent Child Abuse Iowa, our mission is to empower community prevention efforts across the state to ensure safe and happy childhoods through collaboration with diverse partners to lead to a better future for Iowa. So what we really want to do is we serve the entire state, and we really want to work to empower those people working directly with those families to make sure that they have the skills, trainings, capacities they need to provide the best service they can to the families and kids that they're working with.
Let's talk, but by the way, Iowa Department of Health, that's who you need to call. They are the enforcing agency, right? I mean, I want to make that clear. Iowa Department of Health and Human Services. 800-362-2178. Again, 800-362-2178. You'll find that on our website as well under resources. You don't have to wait for abuse to occur to involve DHS. They provide resources for parental support. Resources right now, and that's part of what I wish and I hope that we accomplish in this program, is defining what those resources are and why parents, whether they realize it or not, why they may need some of those resources, okay? Child abuse prevention's huge. We need to prevent, there should never be a child that is touched in such a way that, could be abusive. And touch doesn't always happen physically. It happens mentally, emotionally. I got into that, but I think it's important to learn why it's important for families to bond with their kids, gaining parenting skills and managing stress. Right now, the stressor, the big stressor that everybody's dealing with is COVID-19. Talk to us a bit about that and what you're seeing from the phone calls and the interaction you're having with everyday Iowan.
You know, COVID has been pretty scary for us in the field because we're not sure we have a good idea about what's actually going on. What we know with COVID, as you said, is everybody's more stressed out, and it's not just COVID. 2020 has been a crazy year. You know, we have had the civil unrest and the Black Lives Matter movement come to a head. We have had extreme weather events happening across the country. The economics impacts from COVID. All of these stressors are piling up on people. I saw a report yesterday that suggested that 1 in 4 Americans were experiencing depression right now.
Right.
You know, and you add that on top of these parents, if they're lucky enough to still have their jobs, they have their kids at home and they have to figure out, I can't miss work, but I can't send my kid to school now. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about daycare. Or like me, I am at home right now. Luckily, my wonderful wife is upstairs helping get our kids ready, but she has an 8:30 meeting, you know, and we're trying to juggle all these new roles of I still have to make sure I'm getting my work done and I have meetings I can't miss, but I also have to be my kid's digital teacher. And I also have to be daycare. And it's all of these different things where most parents, in a lot of cases, are used to their kids for most of the waking hours of the day, their kids are with somebody else. So it's really changing the dynamics of those relationships. Around March, when everybody first went home in the state and we saw similar trends across the country, we saw reports of suspected child abuse drop down to around 50% of where they were prior to that. And that was a huge cause for concern for all of us because we knew that these risk factors were increasing. Again, not just the stress, but the economic risk factors, the support risk factors. I know, Scott, you had mentioned earlier on in the program, school doesn't just provide education support. It provides a lot of necessary resources to support kids. You know, some kids go to school and that's their safe haven. That's where they escape from the abuse that's happening in their house. That might be the only place they get a meal for a day. So we had a lot of concerns when everybody went home, and we still have a lot of those concerns. One of the things that there is a ray of hope there. We are seeing those report rates go back up, and I use that term hope there in that people are calling and making those calls when they suspect abuse, but abuse is still happening, and we're concerned that it's happening at a higher rate than what we're still seeing because we know so many people are just isolated at home. And as we've seen some of these high-profile cases of abuse that have unfortunately resulted in untimely deaths way too soon, that when people are isolated, those things go undetected, and that's the worst-case scenario. So we really have to come together, as you said, as a community to support these families and support these kids to make sure that they have a safe and secure and happy life.
Brittany Blong is in her. Is that your married name or what is it?
That is my maiden name.
Your maiden name. Okay, I didn't know. I don't even know if you're married. That's how close we are. But Brittany, does this sound familiar? Are you hearing a lot of the same thing within the walls at St. Gregory's anyway?
Well, you know, the idea of what he's saying, just being in the drug world for a number of years. And having people that I would call friends that had children, just the way that they would interact on a regular basis or wouldn't based on how their parent or parents were using, you know, it only stands to reason that that Greg's concern about them being at home more often and then the rate going down as far as reporting, it's worrisome, you know, it's believable.
I remember hearing this. Kids are off to school. It's mommy's quiet time or daddy's quiet time. And that can be as much as, of a, a breath for a parent as anything. So yeah, I believe the stressors are real. Greg, you are suggesting you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg to paraphrase if I can, tip of the iceberg of what is actually happening out there, in terms of, the stressors that are causing, or one of the causes of child abuse, right?
We just don't know. That is what we're speculating. There's some things out there as people are trying to study and trying to stay ahead of this as much as possible. I've heard, some reports out there that it's not the rates are really increasing, but the rates in which the violence or the severity of the violence is increasing. So we just don't know what we don't know about what's going on behind these closed doors. And that's the thing that's scary to us, and why we really advocate for communities to come together and wrap around families. I can't say that enough, how important it is for us to support one another socially, right? And I know that's just a huge part, that social interaction of supporting one another and coming to the prevention world and hearing that we know that from research and studying adverse childhood experiences and studying abuse, that the presence of one safe, caring, trusting adult in a child's life can mitigate the impacts of abuse and neglect to the point to where that child who experienced those adverse childhood experiences, who experienced that trauma, can have better health outcomes later on in life than a child who didn't have those experiences but doesn't have those supports. So just that social support, reaching out to one another, supporting one another, being that positive, caring, trusting person in a child's life makes a major impact. But communities can do a lot too. Employers really working to support their employees and their families. People utilizing their community resources that are available, whether it's parenting classes, whether it's things for concrete supports, whether it's food assistance, rent assistance, whatever it might be. Just communities really coming together to rally around their families to make sure everybody's getting what they need.
Well, we're going to ask you listeners out there to rally around the radio right now, because we're talking about child abuse and all the stressors that we're dealing with in regard to COVID. Greg Bellville, our Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Iowa, he's our special guest. Brittany Blong in studio from St. Gregory's. She's our guest, Nick Learhoff, today. Danny Bishop at the helm of the mothership. Danny, it is time for a break. Folks, you're listening to St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show. Look for us online at talktherapytmhs.com. We invite you to join in for the conversation. Sit back, listen, and enjoy this 1 hour weekly. By the way, you can hear this show from 4 to 5 as well. 4 to 5 on this station, 940, and that is AM on your dial. And we appreciate the opportunity to come into your homes each and every week. All right, stay tuned. There's more on the other side from the Five Talents Financial Management Studios. Scott Casper with you. Stay tuned. More after this.
Talk Therapy, the mental health show, is brought to you by St. Gregory's Recovery Center. St. Gregory's features individualized drug treatment programs with a personal and holistic approach. Enjoy private counseling in small groups attended by caring staff in beautiful and serene locales. St. Gregory's is evidence-based rehabilitation. Most insurance is accepted. Don't go it alone. Enjoy a high success rate with St. Gregory's Recovery Centers. St. Greg's, it's where science meets recovery. stgregory.com.
I can't say enough about the staff at St. Gregory's, who seem especially gifted to work in this field. They were so helpful and encouraging and will always have my gratitude. I made some very good new friends, a couple of whom I probably would not have made it through those beginning days without. Everyone and the programs at St. Gregory's seemed designed and placed in my life by God's perfect plan.
RelevantRadio.com/St. Gregory. RelevantRadio.com/St. Gregory.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the show. It is St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health. In the studio today, filling in for the ill Nick Learhoff. He's at home with family, and hopefully he'll be getting better soon. We always pray for our friends and even those that we don't know. I mean, this is a big time for prayer. If you think one of the things missing in your life is spiritual, okay, and spirituality comes in a variety of different forms. But I will tell you this, it probably is missing in your life if you think it's missing, because then therein lies the question, why? I I was able to find spirituality again. It's one thing to go to church, but understand why you're going to church. Church is a place, it's a gathering, but it's something that we do to enjoy the community of others. Okay, and that's huge for me. And St. Gregory's a great launching place for me to launch into the next stage of my life, and that is one that has a clear blue sky with a big, beautiful sun. And the moon is oh so pretty at night. Let me tell you what, stuff that I had forgotten about. You remember, Brittany, when people that come, or from people perhaps that had a recent stay at St. Gregory's, they say, I heard birds for the first time in my yard or outside my window or whatever. They've always been there. You know, uh-huh. It's not like, oh, he's sober now, we're going to start going into his yard. No, it's just a realization that senses can be deadened by substance abuse, right?
Yeah, and also the reappearance of just being able to have quiet moments.
Yeah.
Where there's not all this noise in your head, and you're able to be present.
And why are you looking at me when you say that? Is it something about what I do for a living in radio and television?
Well, it's just because we're talking to each other.
Okay, good. We're going to get along just fine. All right, our guest, Greg Bellville, Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Iowa. The topic, it is a serious topic, but again, our goal in this program, okay, Josh Rielitz, Executive Producer, myself, Danny, what we want to do is have what we talk about become part of the daily lexicon, okay? And if we do that, it makes it easier for people to identify, perhaps, to understand what the resources are. And Greg, there are plenty of resources out there, but finding them, is it easier today with the something called the intranet?
I think it's both easier and harder, frankly. You know, I remember when I became a parent, and I felt so unprepared, and there were so many different resources out there. I didn't know which book to read or which one to trust. Luckily, here in Iowa, you know, Prevent Child Abuse Iowa, we are here to help point people to those resources, especially local in their community. Iowa has a lot of resources across the state in people's communities that they can get help. And they can get access to those resources by going to our website, pcaiowa.org.
Do that again. You broke up.
pcaiowa.org.
Uh-huh.
Or they can call 211 and get access to a ton of resources. Like you mentioned before, they can call DHS. And everybody really just wants to make sure that families have the resources they need to be prepared. You know, I've been blown away by the passion and fortitude and resilience and just how hard people in the prevention field work, similar to the treatment field. You know, that's one of my proudest things of working in treatment was just the dedication I saw of the people I worked with day in and day out. It's humbling to be in the presence of those people that just care so much and work so hard to serve others.
I can't thank them enough. Not just, you know, it's one thing to say healthcare providers, okay? All right, or daycare providers, by God, they are on the front line. I get it, okay? But it's those folks at the Department of Human Services, it's folks like you, Greg, and Brittany, it's folks like you who are seeing it every single day. It's part of their waking hours. It's part of what they dream about when they're asleep. I dreamed about Nick last night. Nick is no longer with St. Gregory's, by the way, in my dream. He says, I think I've got everything under control. I no longer need St. Gregory's. I think, you know, and I'm a ways away from leaving St. Gregory's. I think I'm going to need St. Gregory's the rest of my life. I think St. Gregory is with me every minute of every day. And I'm proud of that, by the way. I'm proud that my family thought enough of me to give me that one best chance at reinventing myself through the spirituality and through the tools that were provided to me at St. Gregory's. We need to provide parents with the tools to better understand what's going on with our kids. Child abuse, as I mentioned earlier, comes in many different forms. Greg, tell me a little bit about the types of child abuse that are prevalent in this day and age.
For abuse, it's kind of what we're all familiar with, which is your physical abuse, your emotional abuse, and your sexual abuse. And then you have the neglect side of that as well, right? The physical neglect or the emotional neglect, which it's not always those extreme examples that we see, right? It can be that a kid is not getting the loving attention that they need. And it's often not that parents are doing it purposefully, right? It can be a lack of resources. It can be that food insecurity in the house, or that they can't afford daycare and they're struggling to make ends meet, but they still have to go to work and work 2 jobs. So there's a lot of factors that really can play into that. The other thing, as we learn more and more, is there's things that happen that have an impact on the health outcomes of a child into adulthood and in childhood that are also what we call adverse childhood experiences. There's been a lot of research done on this, some really influential research, and those are things, as you mentioned before, Scott, that people wouldn't normally think about. When we think about substance use in the household has a profound impact on a child, and Brittany mentioned that before, and we talk a lot about that cycle, right, and how that passes on to generational trauma. Racism can have an impact on children, as well as things like an incarcerated parent, mental health issues in the household, domestic violence in the household, or separation and divorce of parents. All of those things can have a traumatic impact on a child and affect them not only mentally and developmentally, but also physiologically. And without that trusting, caring, supportive adult relationship that we talked about before, if those things go unmitigated, it can lead to some serious health outcomes later on in life. It can lead to things like addiction, like substance use. So it's really important, again, that we just be there to support one another and support those kids.
And
all kids.
I would agree that it comes in the most unsuspecting ways. Most of my life, and even still, I would say that I had an idealistic childhood. It wasn't until I was clean several years, and last year I was in Chicago for a Freud meets Buddha conference.
A Freud meets Buddha conference.
And somebody in the booth next to me was from Amen Clinic. So Daniel Amen, he's a brain doctor. And I was chatting with that guy and threw my business card in the brain scan little fishbowl. And I said, hey, this is me, and I'd like a brain scan. Wink, wink.
Complimentary brain scan.
And I did get one.
Really?
And so there was this whole they took this whole analysis thing with my background. They took pictures of my brain, and then I had like a thing a couple days later where the psychiatrist went through the results with me.
Right.
And I found out some interesting stuff about when I was a kid, and I grew up Catholic, had a same-sex attraction, and I knew that because of my environment that it was bad, and my parents not being, I suppose, supportive, not that I ever truly came out, I didn't realize what kind of effect that had on a child's psyche. The fact that here are these people that love me unconditionally. I see it in all these ways, yet I have to hide who I am because I can't be loved just as I am.
Wow. That's a lot to chew on right there.
Oh, yeah.
So you've had your brain looked at. I like that.
Oh, I just had to know where I was at.
I'm afraid to even offer myself up as the subject for any person with letters after their name, because I'll tell you what, I'm scared they might find nothing. Just a big, vast, empty space where there should be a brain. Danny is laughing. Danny, you've known me for a while. Would you say I'm relative to my fear?
Listen, I think if you ask if you're crazy or not,
yeah,
I think you're probably doing okay.
Borderline.
No, I think you're probably okay.
Teetering. All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about what you can do to prevent abuse. We're talking child abuse today on the program. Sexual abuse is huge. It's so. Right now we're living through the commercials that are supporting those that seek to be a part of the class action suit against Boy Scouts of America. And there are many that have died, gone on, and won't come out and say, hey, I was abused. We get that. But we also are seeing a large number of men, and some of them are in their 60s and 70s, believe it or not. On the spectrum, it's a wild number. But the numbers of people that were affected by trusting troop leaders and things like that. Sexual abuse does come into this in a big way, and hopefully we'll have more time to talk about it on the other side of the break. How does substance abuse relate to child abuse, and so much more? Folks, you're listening to St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show. That's Talk Therapy, TMHS.com. Online, 244-1350. Our number, 515-244-1350. Our guest, Greg Bellville. He is the executive director of Prevent Child Abuse Iowa. More with him and Brittany Belong in studio. Stay tuned. We'll be back after this.
St. Gregory's Talk Therapy, the mental health show, will continue after this commercial timeout.
The folks at St. Gregory were vital in helping me to get my brother into rehab. They were not only supportive of him, but of our whole family. They truly saved all of our lives with their love and kindness. Because of the hard work they helped my brother do, we regained a valued, healthy, and incredible part of our family. From the bottom of my heart, thank you.
RelevantRadio.com/St. Gregory, setting the new standard for recovery.
All right, welcome back to the Five Talents Financial Management Studio. Scott Casper, Brittany Belong sitting in for Nick Learhoff this week. Talk Therapy, the mental health show, brought to you by our friends at St. Gregory, an incredible place to find yourself. Now, we're talking with Greg Bellville, Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Iowa. And talking off air, the question came up, and Brittany, say it out loud for everybody to hear.
Well, I just want, how do you prevent you?
That's a loaded question.
It's a great question, right? And that's the one that we're all trying to figure out. And the wonderful thing about it is child abuse is 100% preventable, right? It does not have to happen. And that's the thing that my team and my board and we all talk, we're not resting until we get there, right? That's our goal is there is no more child abuse. And there's a lot of things we can do. Some of it we already talked about, right? And some of it's just that reach out to a member, especially now while everybody's stressed out. See what you can do, right? Let parents know, like, if parenting's hard, right? And taking care of kids is hard. So do you need help? Do you need a break, right? Do you need me? I know that's difficult in times of COVID. And people have done a great job of coming up with creative solutions to that, or the people that they're keeping in their hive of people that they still see. But offer resources, offer to take somebody a meal, whatever you can do to help somebody, as well as be that caring, trusting, warm, safe relationship for a child. If you know a child who is having tough times, or even if you don't, just that reaching out and being someone that a child can turn to in tough times, right? I know growing up, I would much more readily go to my grandmother than I would go to my parents with something. And my parents were great, right? Like, my parents were a great example. They were very helpful. But my grandmother just took the time to build that relationship with me. I'm sure she passed all that information on to my parents, which was good for me growing up, right? Relationship, someone a child can turn to that can be trusted and safe.
So if
the other thing is, go ahead.
So if there are kids outside playing and you see that maybe one parent of the neighbor kids getting worked up, maybe offered, hey, why don't you let me take them off your hands for a little bit and invite them over to play in your yard? Or
maybe, yeah. Or just ask that parent how they're doing. Do they need anything, right? Like, we all know we're doing better about it as a society, I think. But I think we have such a long ways to go about this idea that, we keep our struggles private and we don't ask for help because that's a sign of weakness.
Right.
We really need to embrace this idea, and we need to embrace it for kids too, that we don't build resiliency skills or coping skills or problem solving skills on our own. right? We're not born with that innately. It's not reflexive for us like breathing. We learn that through interactions with other people. So it's so important that we're modeling that and we're helping to demonstrate that and build those skills with kids. And there's formal classes, there's, like I said, there's a number of organizations around the state that provide parenting classes or peer parenting classes or home visiting where people can come to your house and help you learn these skills and learn what's an appropriate expectation for a child, right? That's one of those protective factors. It's, as we talk about those protective factors in preventing abuse, it's those social relationships. It's resiliency in parents and parents having those coping skills. It's having appropriate expectations for a child, right? Is this 2-year-old, once I have that expectation, and we talk about that in treatment all the time too, right? Like if I can manage my expectations, it really helps to cope with things. If I know like this 2-year-old's, it's throwing a fit right now and it's being kind of crazy and it's stressing me out, but that's what 2-year-olds are supposed to do. It's testing its boundaries. It's learning right now. That really helps me to calm down and not think like, you're not behaving, you're not doing the right things, right? That helps me to understand where that child's at.
So in
providing those go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, you
Okay.
you go ahead.
So in my position, I meet a lot of different mental health therapists, and I only in the last year became aware of BHIS, is what they call it, BHIS. They're like in-home counseling services that help families be able to relate. Do you guys work with them at all, or?
So we, as part of what we do at Prevent Child Abuse Iowa, we fund some in-home visiting programs through the DHS Iowa Child Abuse Prevention Program. So we administer that program. But there's a number of those programs that are administered by different organizations. Lutheran Service Industries has home visiting programs. They use Healthy Families America, McV through the Iowa Department of Public Health, ECI. There's a lot of home visiting programs throughout the state. And again, I can't encourage people enough. If you feel like you need help or if you think someone needs help, asking for help is takes so much strength to do.
Bingo.
People view it as a weakness so much, but that's the thing. It's a paradox to me always is we view asking for help as such a weakness, but it takes us so much strength to do it. And it's such a big sign of strength to reach out and say, hey, how can I do better at this? There's no shame in that. And
relief.
Only good things can come from that, right?
Yeah,
to learn more, to how can I be better for my family?
And relief is waiting for you on the other side of that work and that emotion, right? I mean, once you ask for help, it's a shared burden, and the ultimate beneficiary of that would be the children in your life and you, and your families, extended as they are. We've got to take into account the time remaining in the program. Warning signs of abuse. Greg?
You can look, physical markings are one of the first things I think that people see about, or think about when they think of abuse. So if there's bruises and spots that aren't typically related to play, like the knees, if you see bruises on the back or something like that, you can see people, children, resource hoarding, sudden changes in behavior or loss of interest in things that they were typically interested in, like playing, fear of going to specific places or being around different people, increased absences from school. There's just so many things that can happen there. Isolation. So again, if people are suspicious of something happening, reach out to those parents, reach out to DHS. You can make anonymous reports to DHS if you're suspicious. And I always recommend erring on the side of caution. I'm not the type of person that wants to say, if only I would have done this, right? I would rather call and report it and have the call and find out that nothing's going on than not call and find out something really serious was going on later. So as you said, Scott, there's a lot of people out there to help.
Greg, we hope you take the invitation seriously, and that is to come back. If anything I leave behind after my time here on this big marble that we live on, I believe that we leave it a better place than we found it. and one of the folks that is in charge of that in a positive way, in my belief anyway. Greg Bellville has been our guest, Executive Director of Prevent Child Abuse Iowa. We thank you for your time today, sir. Give them the website and the phone number.
Thank you. The website is www.pcaiowa.org, and the phone number is 515-244-2200.
Greg, we appreciate your time today, and pass it on to your staff and those that volunteer as well. We appreciate all the work and effort and the belief that we as one can be a better society and our kids can be the beneficiaries. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'd love to come back. Thank you. Thank you for shedding light on this issue. I really appreciate it.
Well, Nick will be in touch with you for sure. Folks, don't forget the Iowa Department of Human Resources. Excuse me. See how I did there? I combined a sentence with my point. The Iowa Department of Human Services can be a resource for you for sure. They're the ones you need to call if you suspect child abuse is happening to someone you know. And it is up to us to take care of each other, okay? And, you know, they say it takes a village. No, it takes a family. And a family is many things, including a village. Segregating that out to a one term, I think, is wrong. I think we need to be all-inclusive. 800-362-2178, the number to call for Iowa Department of Human Services, 800-362-2178. For Danny Bishop, our executive producer, Josh Relitz, it's been a pleasure having Brittany Belong in the studio from St. Gregory's, part of the business development team out there, and they can be a big help to you. Look for them online. Look for them on this very program. Each and every week, we have the pleasure of talking to you because of them. And so, from the Five Talents Financial Management Group Studios, I'm Scott Casper. Have a good day, everybody.